power of no. The empty case. The waiting list. The watch you can't buy. 1 million made. 5 million wanted. The math doesn't lie. They could make more. They have the factories. They have the gold. They have the demand. They just won't. No CEO. No shareholders. No investors. No quarterly reports. Just one word, said over and over again, to anyone who walks through the door. No, this is not bad business. This is the business. This is the most powerful no in the world. This is the Rolex trap. Quick thing before we dive in, if you love these breakdowns of how billion-dollar empires actually work, hit that subscribe button. It takes 1 second, and it genuinely helps this channel grow. Okay, let's get into it. The year is 1881, a small German town, Kulmbach. A boy is born into a family of bakers. His name, Hans Wilsdorf. By the time Hans is 12, both his parents are dead. His uncles take over the family bakery, sell it for cash, and throw Hans into a brutal boarding school where they force him to learn languages, mathematics, and business. Hans hates every second of it. But that one decision, that brutal childhood, would eventually build a $20 billion empire. By 1900, Hans is 19 years old, no family, no inheritance, no connections. But he speaks 4 languages, he understands accounting, and he has one obsession: time. Hans moves to a tiny Swiss town called La Chaux-de-Fonds, the watchmaking capital of the world. Back then, every serious watch on Earth was a pocket watch. Big, heavy, fragile. Men kept them inside their vests. Wristwatches existed, but they were considered jewelry for women. Real men carried pocket watches. End of story. Hans looked at this and saw something nobody else could see. A war was coming. He could feel it. Soldiers would need both hands free. Pilots would fly planes. Engineers would build machines. Bankers would take phone calls. The future was on the wrist. In 1905, with almost no money, Hans moves to London. He opens a tiny office, 2 employees, 1 mission: make the wristwatch a man's tool, not a toy, not jewelry, a machine. But Hans had a problem. Nobody trusted Swiss-made wristwatches. They were considered weak, inaccurate, unreliable. If Hans was going to sell a wristwatch to a man, he needed proof. So in 1910, Hans did something insane. He sent one of his wristwatches to the Kew Observatory, the toughest watch testing facility on Earth. 45 days of brutal torture. Frozen, burned, shaken, dropped, submerged. Most watches were destroyed within days. Hans's watch survived. It became the first wristwatch in history to earn the Class A Precision Certificate, a title only marine chronometers had ever held. And just like that, in one stamp on one piece of paper, the wristwatch was no longer a joke. It was a weapon. But Hans had one more problem: his company name. Wilsdorf and Davis. Long, boring, German. And after World War I, the British hated everything German. If Hans wanted to sell watches in London, Paris, New York, he needed a new name. One that worked in every language. One you could pronounce anywhere on Earth. One that fit on a tiny watch dial. Hans claimed the name came to him one morning, sitting on a London omnibus, watching the streets blur past. 5 letters. Easy to say. Pronounceable in every language on Earth. Rolex. Some say it stood for horological excellence. Others say it was inspired by the French horlogerie exquise, The truth? Hans took it to his grave. But what mattered was this: Rolex sounded like the ticking of a watch itself. Rolex. It was the first global brand name ever designed, before globalization existed. Now Hans had the name, he had the precision, he had the certificate. But he needed one more thing: proof. Real proof. Not in a laboratory, not in a vault, in the real world. So in 1927, Hans paid a young British woman named Mercedes Gleitze to do something nobody had ever done before: swim the English Channel. 21 miles of freezing salt water, 10 hours, in the dark, wearing a Rolex. She nearly drowned. She vomited from salt water. Her body went numb. But she finished, and when she pulled herself onto the shore, the watch was still ticking. The next day, Hans bought the entire front page of the Daily Mail. One headline, one image, one sentence. The watch that conquered the channel. It was the first influencer marketing campaign in human history, and it cost Hans almost nothing, because Mercedes did it for the publicity. By 1931, Rolex invented the world's first self-winding movement, the perpetual. By 1945, the Datejust, the first watch that automatically changed the date. By 1953, the Submariner, the first dive watch rated to 100 meters. Each invention wasn't just a watch, it was a story. Soldiers wore Rolex, pilots wore Rolex, explorers wore Rolex, James Bond wore Rolex, Steve McQueen, Paul Newman, the world's most dangerous men, doing the world's most dangerous things, all wore the same watch. Rolex didn't sell time anymore. Rolex sold identity. By 1960, Hans Wilsdorf was the most powerful watchmaker on Earth. But Hans had a secret that would change Rolex forever. Hans Wilsdorf had no children, no siblings left alive, no nephews, no nieces, no heirs. His wife had died decades earlier. He never remarried. The most powerful watchmaker in the world was completely alone. Most billionaires, before they die, do one of two things. They sell their company, or they pass it to their children. Hans Wilsdorf did neither. Instead, in 1960, lying in his Geneva home, Hans signed one of the strangest documents in business history. He transferred 100% ownership of Rolex, every share, every patent, every factory, every gram of gold, to a private trust, the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation. And here's where it gets brilliant. A foundation has no shareholders, no investors, no board of directors fighting for dividends. Nobody can buy it. Nobody can sue it for more growth. Nobody can fire its leadership for underperforming. The foundation has one job: keep Rolex alive forever. Think about what this actually means. Apple has to grow every quarter, or its stock collapses. Nike has to chase trends, or Wall Street panics. Tesla has to promise the future, or its CEO gets fired. But Rolex? Rolex answers to nobody. The company is so private that today, 65 years later, we still don't know its real revenue. We don't know its profit margins. We don't know exactly how many employees it has. We don't even know its CEO most years. Rolex deliberately keeps its leadership invisible. Industry estimates say Rolex makes around $10 to $12 billion in revenue every single year. Maybe more. But the actual number? Locked behind a Swiss foundation that legally doesn't have to tell anyone. This is how Hans Wilsdorf built the trap, by making Rolex immortal. Now, fast forward to today. A man walks into a Rolex boutique in Manhattan. Wall Street trader. $40,000 in his pocket. He points to a watch in the case. A Submariner. "I'll take it." The salesman smiles politely and says, "No." Not because they didn't have the watch, not because of supply chains, not because of money. They just refused to sell it. And he wasn't the only one. Walk into any Rolex boutique on Earth today. The display cases are empty. You ask for a Submariner. 2-year waitlist, sir. You ask for a Daytona. 5-year waitlist. Maybe. You ask for a steel GMT Master. We can put your name on a list, but we cannot promise anything. And here's the twist nobody talks about. You leave that store wanting it more. This is not poor inventory management. This is the most expensive psychology experiment ever run on the human brain. Because the more Rolex says no, the more your brain convinces itself you must have one. Behavioral scientists call this reactance. When something is denied to you, your brain doesn't lose interest. Your brain wants it more. Rolex weaponized this. They created an entire global industry of desperation. If you actually get the watch you want, congratulations. You're now part of a club, a small one, an exclusive one. And if you don't, you'll spend the next 10 years dreaming about it, talking about it, saving for it, watching videos about it. Either way, Rolex wins. And here's the second part of the trap. Rolex chooses who gets to buy. If you walk in off the street with cash, you're nobody. You go to the back of the list. You wait for years, maybe forever. But if you've bought watches from that boutique for 10 years, if you spend money on jewelry, champagne, dinners, if you attend their private events, their galas, their charity auctions, suddenly, the watch appears. Rolex turned its customers into contestants. You don't buy a Rolex, you earn one. But every trap creates a loophole. Because if Rolex won't sell you the watch, somebody else will. For a price. Welcome to the gray market. A new Rolex Submariner from a boutique. Retail price, about $10,000. The same watch on the gray market, $15,000, sometimes $20,000. A Daytona, retail $15,000. Gray market, $30,000, sometimes $50,000. A steel Daytona Rainbow, retail price $96,000, resale price over $400,000. Between 2018 and 2022, Rolex prices on the secondary market tripled. They didn't just hold value. They beat the S&P 500. They beat gold. They beat real estate. They beat Apple stock. For 4 years, the smartest investment a man could make wasn't crypto, wasn't tech. It was a steel watch with a green dial. And then, in 2022, the bubble cracked. Crypto crashed, tech stocks crashed, resellers panicked, watch values dropped 30%, 40%. Some watches lost half their value overnight. Reporters started writing obituaries. The Rolex bubble is finally bursting. The end of the watch boom. But here is the genius of the trap. Even when the gray market collapsed, Rolex never lowered its retail price. Never increased production, never panicked, never blinked. Because Rolex doesn't sell watches to resellers. Rolex sells watches to time itself, and time is on Rolex's side. Today, Rolex controls roughly 30% of the entire luxury watch industry on Earth. By revenue, Rolex is bigger than Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, Vacheron Constantin, and Cartier combined. Over 9,000 employees, 4 secret factories in Switzerland, a supply chain so vertically integrated that even competitors don't fully understand it. Rolex makes its own gold, its own steel, its own platinum. They have an in-house foundry, an in-house lab, an in-house research department. Most luxury brands buy components from suppliers. Rolex makes everything themselves. And in 2023, for the first time in 119 years, Rolex did something it had never done before. They bought another company, Bucherer, a luxury retailer, over 100 stores worldwide. The watch industry froze. Why would Rolex, a company that famously never acquires anyone, suddenly buy a retail empire? The answer is simple and terrifying. Rolex realized the next stage of the trap is controlling distribution itself. If Rolex owns the stores, Rolex controls who buys, who sells, and at what price. The gray market loses its leverage. The waitlist becomes more powerful. The trap gets tighter. So what can we actually learn from Rolex? 3 weapons, 3 lessons, 3 things every great brand should understand. 1. Say no. Most companies are addicted to growth. Sell more, expand more, discount more, open more locations. Rolex did the opposite. Rolex grew by refusing. 2. Sell the story, not the product. Rolex didn't sell a watch. They sold the man who climbed Everest, the man who swam the Channel, the man who walked on the moon, the man who survived the war. Competitors can copy your product. They can never copy your legend. 3. Build for forever. Hans Wilsdorf didn't build a company. He built an institution. He removed shareholders. He removed quarterly pressure. He removed the temptation to sell out. While every other luxury house on earth is owned by LVMH, or Kering, or Richemont, Rolex stands alone, untouchable, unbuyable, unbreakable. Remember the man at the start of our story? The trader who got told no? 6 months later, he was back, better dressed, quieter, patient. He'd bought champagne, jewelry, smaller watches. He'd built a relationship. And finally, the salesman pulled out a green box. Inside, the Daytona, the same watch he had been refused 6 months earlier. Only now, it didn't feel like a purchase. It felt like a reward. That is the Rolex trap. The trap that turned a German orphan into the architect of a $20 billion empire that nobody on earth can buy, sell, or break. Because Hans Wilsdorf understood something that most billionaires die without ever learning. Power is not in selling more. Power is in choosing who you sell to. Apple grew by saying yes to everyone. Amazon grew by saying yes to everyone. Nike grew by saying yes to everyone. Rolex grew by saying no. No to shareholders. No to mass production. No to discounts. No to Wall Street. No to the man with cash. No to the trend chasers. No to the next generation. Just no. And in a world where every company is desperate for one more sale, Rolex became the only brand on earth that got rich by refusing to sell. The most powerful word in business was the one they were never afraid to say. If you made it this far, built to scale. See you in the next breakdown.